The protein powder you buy because you're trying to do things right. The one with natural chocolate flavor on the label was flavored by a company you've never heard of, using a proprietary blend of compounds that can number in the dozens. And the brand selling it to you almost certainly doesn't know all of them either. That's not an expression. That's not an exaggeration. That is Title 21, Section 101.22 of the Code of Federal Regulations, the FDA's own rulebook, giving every food company in America the legal right to print 2 words on a label and walk away from the conversation entirely. Those 2 words are natural flavors. Here's what took me a long time to figure out. This isn't one brand's workaround. All 8 products on this list, from baby food to breakfast cereal to the juice your kid drinks before school, made deliberate, calculated, board-approved decisions to use this classification. And they counted on you never asking what was actually inside it. By the end of this video, you'll know which 8 product categories are abusing this loophole the hardest, the 4 brands that voluntarily publish what the law lets them hide, and the 1 regulatory gap that explains why natural on a food label has almost no legal meaning anymore. Let's go. Number 8, enhanced waters and sports drinks parent companies: PepsiCo, Gatorade, Propel, Coca-Cola, Vitamin Water, Powerade. You grab it because you're making the responsible choice. You're hydrating. You picked the bottle over the can, the zero sugar over the full sugar version. It says electrolytes somewhere on it, maybe some B vitamins. The ingredient list looks short. The whole transaction feels like a small act of self-care. Vitamin Water is owned by Coca-Cola. Gatorade and Propel are owned by PepsiCo. These are not wellness companies that happen to get big. These are the same 2 corporations that built their global infrastructure on soda, on selling sugar and carbonation to billions of people. And when consumer preferences shifted toward clean, they pivoted their marketing, not their formulation philosophy. The natural flavor entry in products like Propel Fitness Water and Vitamin Water covers a proprietary blend sourced from contracted flavor houses, primarily Givaudan, headquartered in Switzerland, and IFF, International Flavors and Fragrances, publicly traded on the NYSE, which between them supply flavor compounds to the majority of major food and beverage brands in the United States. In 2010, the Center for Science and the Public Interest challenged Coca-Cola in court over Vitamin Water's health claims. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in 2011 that the marketing language could plausibly mislead a reasonable consumer. The flavor compounds classified under natural flavors can legally include carrier solvents. Propylene glycol is among the most common, which function as delivery mechanisms for the flavor compound but fall below the threshold, requiring individual label disclosure as incidental additives. For athletes and physically active adults making deliberate choices about what they consume during training, the gap between the label and the actual formulation is not trivial. For children given these drinks as a smarter alternative to soda, the word natural is doing real trust-building work the company never actually earned. Coca-Cola and PepsiCo didn't move into wellness. They repackaged the same opacity in a cleaner bottle. Number 7, children's breakfast cereals parent companies: General Mills, Cheerios, Lucky Charms, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Kellanova, Fruit Loops, Frosted Flakes. Kellanova acquired by Mars in 2023. You know the sound. The cardboard flap pulling back, cereal hitting porcelain at 7 in the morning. The cartoon mascot staring back at you while you're still half asleep. For most of us, breakfast cereal is the first thing we ever ate alone, without being watched, feeling like a small adult managing our own breakfast. There's a warmth to it that runs deep enough that we pour it for our own kids without much thought. General Mills reported $19.9 billion in net sales in fiscal 2023. Kellanova, formerly Kellogg's, rebranded ahead of its acquisition by Mars, controlled the other major share of the breakfast cereal shelf. Mars completed that acquisition in 2023 for $36 billion, making it the same Mars that manufactures Snickers, M&Ms, and Skittles. These are not companies making corner-cutting decisions because of budget pressure. Every ingredient call they make passes through a cost optimization layer reviewed at the shareholder level. The fruit flavor in Fruit Loops and the cinnamon in Cinnamon Toast Crunch are not derived from meaningful quantities of the foods those names reference. They are natural flavors formulations, proprietary blends manufactured by the same contracted flavor houses supplying the rest of the industry. In 2021, a class action lawsuit was filed against General Mills, asserting that Cinnamon Toast Crunch contained no detectable cinnamon as a functional ingredient in proportion to what its name implies. The flavor houses producing these compounds, Givaudan, IFF, and DSM Firmenich, formed by the 2023 merger of Firmenich and DSM, operate under confidentiality agreements that make their formulations legally protected trade secrets. That means even the cereal brand cannot always disclose the full compound list in its own product to a consumer who asks directly. For children between 2 and 12 years old, whose gut microbiome and neurological architecture are in active development and sensitive to repeated low-level chemical exposure, this is not a theoretical concern. For parents who interpret natural flavors in a children's product as a safety signal, the classification is performing a function it was never designed to perform. The cartoon on the box was designed by a marketing department. The flavor inside it was designed by a chemistry department. Neither one disclosed what the other was doing. Number 6. Flavored yogurt parent companies: Danone, Dannon, Oikos, Light and Fit, General Mills, Yoplait. It's in the refrigerated section right next to actual whole foods. It says fruit on the bottom. There's a picture of a strawberry on the cup, a real sunlit strawberry, the kind that suggests something was harvested. It has protein grams and probiotics listed. The whole presentation says this came from somewhere real. Dannon is owned by Danone, a French multinational reporting over $27 billion in annual revenue. Yoplait is licensed to General Mills in the United States. The fruit flavors in the vast majority of flavored American yogurt products don't come from meaningful quantities of actual fruit. They come from natural flavor systems built by the same contracted flavor houses, classified under the same two-word legal shield. In 2017, Dannon settled a class action lawsuit for $45 million over claims that its Activia and DanActive product lines made misleading probiotic health claims, a settlement that drew direct attention to the gap between what these brands market and what their products functionally deliver. The strawberry, blueberry, and peach flavors in many Dannon and Yoplait SK Us are derived from fruit concentrates processed to a degree that renders them nutritionally negligible in the finished product. The incidental additives clause in 21 CFR 100E1.22 means that stabilizers and carrier agents embedded within flavor systems, including modified food starch and citric acid esters, can be present in the cup you're eating from without appearing anywhere on the label. For elderly consumers managing blood sugar who rely on flavored yogurt as a reliable low glycemic protein source, the actual sugar load and synthetic compound content of light products is a category of hidden information that would change purchasing decisions if disclosed. For pregnant women treating flavored yogurt as a clean protein option, the absence of disclosure around flavor system components removes information they demonstrably deserve. Dannon printed live and active cultures on the front of the label because they were proud of that. They printed natural flavors on the back because they were counting on you not to ask about it. Pattern interrupt. The flavor house reveal. Step back for a second. You've just watched a sports drink, a children's cereal, and a fruit yogurt, 3 completely different brands, 3 different marketing identities, 3 different promises, and they're all pointing at the same 2 or 3 companies for their flavor formulations. Givaudan, IFF, DSM Firmenich. These are businesses most people have never heard of, and they quietly supply the taste experience of an enormous share of the American food supply. I want you to sit with that number for a second. 3 private flavor houses. The majority of the flavors you encounter in a grocery store. When you see natural flavors on a label, you are often looking at a product whose defining sensory quality, the thing that made you pick it off the shelf, was engineered by a company operating under a confidentiality agreement you will never see for a brand that may not itself have access to the full formula. Number 5, clean label, snack, and protein bars. Parent companies: Mars, Kind Bar, acquired 2020, Kellanova, RX Bar, acquired by Kellogg's 2017. You bought it because the label was short, or because the packaging said no BS, literally in capital letters right there on the wrapper, or because it was sitting next to the register at a gym and everything about how it presented itself said, this one is different, this one is honest. honest. This one you can trust. Kind Bar was acquired by Mars in 2020, the same Mars that makes Snickers. RX Bar, whose entire brand identity was built on a stripped-down, transparent ingredient panel, was acquired by Kellogg's in 2017 for $600 million. RX Bar still prints "No BS" on its packaging. That slogan now belongs to a multinational corporation with $14 billion in annual revenue and a legal team with a very precise interpretation of what BS means. Several flavored varieties of both brands carry natural flavors as a listed ingredient. The RX Bar Chocolate Sea Salt, the product most associated with the brand's transparent label identity, lists natural flavors after its signature short-form ingredients. That listing covers a proprietary formulation the company is not required to disclose. A 2019 report by the Environmental Working Group analyzed over 80,000 food products and found natural flavors to be the fourth most common ingredient on American food labels, appearing more frequently than sugar across many health food categories. The gap between the brand identity these companies sell and the ingredient reality they maintain is not an accident. It is a cost structure decision reviewed at the board level because flavor simulation is dramatically cheaper than the real ingredients those flavors reference. For people managing food allergies, particularly those with shellfish, tree nut, or animal-derived sensitivities, the opacity of natural flavors is not an inconvenience. It is a documented risk because flavor compounds can legally be derived from allergenic sources without specific disclosure beyond a general may contain advisory. For the growing population of consumers who specifically seek transparent label products for medical or ethical reasons, the clean label category is, in too many cases, performing transparency rather than providing it. RX Bar charged a premium for honesty. Kellogg's paid $600 million for the right to own that premium. Then they kept the slogan. Number 4. Non-dairy coffee creamers. Parent company, Nestle, Coffee Mate, Natural Bliss. It's the first decision you make every morning before you're fully awake. You pour it on autopilot. It makes the coffee taste like something hazelnut, vanilla, brown sugar oat, and that small, specific hit of flavor is for a lot of people the thing that makes the morning feel manageable. It is a ritual. It is, in a meaningful sense, a daily relationship. Coffee Mate and its cleaner sister product Natural Bliss are both owned by Nestle, the largest food and beverage company on Earth by revenue, reporting over $94 billion in annual sales as of 2023. Natural Bliss was explicitly positioned as the transparent alternative to Coffee Mate. Real cream, real ingredients, simpler. The two products share a parent company, a global distribution infrastructure, and, in several of their flavored SKUs, the same natural flavors, classification covering the same category of undisclosed compounds. Coffee Mate's flavored varieties list natural and artificial flavors, the natural portion covering proprietary compounds not individually disclosed. Natural Bliss, whose marketing language emphasizes only simple, real ingredients, lists natural flavor in its flavored varieties. The hazelnut, vanilla, and caramel flavors in non-dairy creamer products are rarely derived from meaningful quantities of actual hazelnuts, vanilla beans, or caramel. They are flavor simulations, built from compound systems that cost a fraction of the real ingredients they represent, while the marketing communicates the real thing. A 2020 audit by the Cornucopia Institute examining Nestlé's health and wellness product positioning found that several lines contained flavoring ingredients that contradicted their simple branding. For people with dairy sensitivities who choose non-dairy creamers, assuming a simpler formulation, flavor compounds legally derived from animal sources can be present without explicit disclosure, an invisible ingredient decision with real consequences. For people managing cardiovascular conditions who switched from Coffee Mate to Natural Bliss, specifically because they believed the ingredients were meaningfully different, the distinction between those two products in certain flavored SKUs is primarily a marketing decision. Nestlé built one product for people who didn't read labels and another for people who did. The formulations differ. The opacity is identical. What you are watching is not a series of isolated failures. It is the same business model dressed in different packaging at different price points. A company identifies what the consumer wants: clean, simple, honest, and then builds a product that performs those qualities in the marketing layer while maintaining cost efficiencies in the formulation layer. Natural flavors is the mechanism that makes that gap legally sustainable indefinitely. It is not a bug in the system. It is load-bearing architecture. Number 3, 100% natural fruit juices parent companies: PAI Partners, Private Equity, Tropicana since 2021, Coca-Cola, Minute Maid, Simply Orange. You've probably poured from this carton your entire life. It says 100% juice on the front in clean, confident type. Orange juice specifically feels almost medicinal. Vitamins, natural sugars, something your body has recognized as food since you were old enough to hold a cup. It has the most straightforward value proposition in the grocery store. Fruit, pressed, that's it. Tropicana, the #1 orange juice brand in the United States, was sold by PepsiCo to PAI Partners, a European private equity firm, in 2021 for $3.3 billion. PAI Partners also holds Fronery ice cream and a portfolio of other consumer food brands. Private equity ownership means quarterly performance targets, margin optimization pressure, and formulation decisions made by investors whose relationship with orange juice begins and ends at the spreadsheet. Minute Maid and Simply Orange, and remain with Coca-Cola. Here is the specific, verifiable fact I need you to hold on to. Under current FDA regulation, 100% juice products are legally permitted to add flavor packs during processing without listing them as separate ingredients, because those packs are derived from orange byproducts and therefore classify as part of the juice itself. Investigative journalist Alyssa Hamilton documented this process thoroughly in her book Squeezed, published in 2009. Mass-produced orange juice is deoxygenated during tank storage, a process that strips its natural flavor, and then reflavored before bottling using proprietary packs formulated by contracted flavor houses, including Givaudan, which engineer specific flavor profiles for each brand. Tropicana's orange juice tastes like Tropicana, rather than like the variable output of pressed oranges, because a flavor house decided what Tropicana should taste like and built a system to deliver that consistently, every bottle, every season, indefinitely. The product never leaves the 100% juice classification, because every component at some point in the supply chain came from an orange. For parents giving children 100% juice as a fruit equivalent food, the assumption that the flavor they're tasting is the unmodified output of a pressed orange is simply incorrect. For adults managing diabetes who selected orange juice specifically because they believed it to be less processed than other beverages, the reflavoring step is a piece of information that would almost certainly change that decision. The carton says 100% orange juice. It is 100% orange byproducts reflavored by a third party under a trade secret agreement. Those are not the same sentence. Number 2, baby food pouches parent companies: Danone, Happy Family Organics, Campbell Soup Company, Plum Organics, Nestlé, Gerber Organic. This is the one category on this list where the stakes feel different before I've said a single specific thing. You're choosing food for someone who cannot read the label, cannot research the brand, cannot advocate for themselves in any capacity. The implicit contract between the company and the parent buying that pouch is as close to unconditional trust as exists anywhere in consumer commerce. Happy Family Organics is owned by Danone. Plum Organics is owned by Campbell Soup Company. Gerber Organic is owned by Nestlé. Every major organic baby food brand in the United States is owned by a food industry multinational with a legal obligation to shareholders, not to the infants consuming the product. In 2021, the House Subcommittee on Economic and Consumer Policy released a report titled "Baby Foods Are Tainted with Dangerous Levels of Arsenic, Lead, Cadmium, and Mercury," which found that several major brands, including those in Nestlé and Danone's portfolios, contained heavy metal concentrations far exceeding the limits the FDA applies to other food categories. That investigation's most significant finding was structural. Baby food operates under a regulatory framework that does not require the same disclosure standards applied to adult food products. Flavored baby food pouches, including fruit and veggie varieties with added taste profiles, can carry natural flavors listings covering compounds not individually disclosed. For infants whose blood-brain barriers are incompletely formed, whose livers and kidneys are operating at a fraction of adult processing capacity, and whose primary daily nutrition comes from a short list of repeated foods, the standard of safe enough for a healthy adult is not a sufficient threshold. For infants between 4 months and 2 years, in the most critical and irreversible window of neurological development, repeated daily exposure to undisclosed compounds through every single meal is not a theoretical concern for a hypothetical population. For parents who specifically paid a premium for organic certification, believing it guaranteed cleaner, more fully disclosed formulations, the gap between what organic certification covers and what it does not is a regulatory failure with direct, measurable consequences for child health outcomes. They sold you the organic label. They kept the formula proprietary. The one customer who needed the most transparency was the one with the least ability to demand it. Number 1, flavored protein powders and meal replacement supplements. Parent companies, Nestlé, Orgain, majority stake acquired 2022 Post Holdings, Premier Proteins, numerous private equity-backed supplement brands. You bought it because you're trying, genuinely trying, to get protein in around a schedule that doesn't cooperate, to make the numbers work, to do the thing the right way. The flavored powder is the compromise between what you know you should eat and what your actual life allows. And crucially, you read the label before you bought it. You made a considered decision. That is the specific cruelty of where this lands on the list. Premier Protein is owned by Post Holdings, a publicly traded food conglomerate. Organ, positioned as the clean organic protein option, received a majority investment from Nestlé in 2022. The supplement industry operates under DSHEA, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, which grants manufacturers significantly more formulation latitude than conventional food labeling law already provides. In the flavored protein powder category, natural flavors is not the exception. It is functionally universal. A 2018 independent study by the Clean Label Project tested 134 protein powder products across the market and found that 70% contained measurable levels of heavy metals, including arsenic, lead, cadmium, and mercury, and that products labeled organic or natural actually tested higher for certain contaminants than conventional products, an outcome linked to the organic plant sources used in their formulations. The natural flavors in chocolate protein powders routinely include thaumatin, a protein-based sweetness enhancer derived from the West African katemfe fruit, and glutamate compounds that function neurologically similarly to MSG, both of which can appear under the natural flavors umbrella without individual disclosure. Flavor houses contracted by supplement brands operate under the same trade secret protections as those supplying cereal or juice companies, which means the brand whose name is on your tub may not itself have access to the complete compound list in its own product. The opacity does not run only from the label to you. It runs from the ingredient supplier to the brand to the label to you. It is layered opacity by design. For people with autoimmune conditions, MSG sensitivity, or specific amino acid metabolism disorders, the undisclosed glutamate compounds present in many protein powders represent a category of repeated daily exposure. They have no mechanism to opt out of short of abandoning the product category entirely. For competitive athletes subject to drug testing, trace compounds in undisclosed natural flavor systems have historically triggered positive results, a documented ongoing issue that the industry has not resolved and that under current regulatory law, it has no obligation to resolve. You read the label on your protein powder. You didn't read the trade secret filed at a flavor house in New Jersey. That is the gap they are counting on. Number 4, Chomps, privately held certified B Corporation founded 2012. Chomps publishes a complete ingredient sourcing breakdown for its meat sticks that goes further than labeling law requires. Every flavoring compound in its products is listed individually. There is no natural flavors umbrella entry. The company is a certified B Corporation, which means its supply chain, labor practices, and environmental impact are audited by a third-party organization on a fixed review cycle. Not self-reported, not aspirational language on a website. Its beef is sourced from grass-fed, grass-finished cattle, with traceable supply chain verification. That combination of individual ingredient disclosure, third-party audit, and traceable sourcing is genuinely uncommon in the snack category. Chomps is expensive relative to conventional meat snacks, and its product range is narrow. It makes meat sticks, not a full meal solution. Distribution is concentrated in health-forward retail and online channels. You're unlikely to find it in rural grocery chains or gas stations. Access is real and not universal. Even if you never buy a Chomps product, what this brand demonstrates is specific and transferable. We can't disclose that is a corporate policy decision, not a logistical necessity. Full ingredient transparency is operationally achievable at commercial scale. The next time a large brand tells you it cannot tell you what's in its natural flavors, Chomps is the direct, factual answer to that claim. Number 3, Thrive Market. Own brand products. Private company, member co-op ownership structure. Thrive Market's own label products operate under a self-imposed ingredient standard that prohibits using natural flavors as a catch-all classification. Any flavoring compound in a Thrive Market branded product must be individually disclosed. This is a voluntary internal standard. No regulation required it. No lawsuit forced it. The company published its ingredient sourcing criteria publicly and updates them on an ongoing basis. Its membership model, rather than a shareholder model, structurally reduces the quarterly pressure to optimize formulation costs at the expense of ingredient transparency. Number 2, C8 Foods acquired by PepsiCo. In 2024, transparency on current trajectory required. Before its 2024 acquisition by PepsiCo, and in the product line as it currently operates under its original standards, C8 Foods built its entire portfolio without natural flavors as a blanket classification. Its seasoning blends and flavored snacks list individual spice and flavoring components, not because the law required it, but because the company was founded by a family managing multiple autoimmune conditions who needed to know exactly what they were eating. That origin created a structural alignment between the people making the product and the people consuming it that is essentially unique in commercial snack food. PepsiCo completed its acquisition of C8 for $1.2 billion in 2024. What that means for formulation standards going forward is, as of this recording, genuinely unclear. The original product standards are real and documented. Whether they survive the integration process is a question I cannot answer yet, and one you should track actively if you rely on this brand. C8 is a demonstration of what happens when the people formulating the food have a personal stake in its actual safety, not its marketed safety. That alignment is rare. The acquisition is a reminder of how quickly it can be purchased away from the people who built it. Number 1, Bob's Red Mill, 100% employee-owned via ESOP's founded 1978 ownership. Transferred to employees 2010. In 2010, founder Bob Moore transferred 100% ownership of Bob's Red Mill to its employees through an employee stock ownership plan. On his 81st birthday, in front of the staff, he had multiple acquisition offers. He declined them. The company is now owned entirely by the people working in it, whose retirement accounts are directly tied to its long-term reputation rather than its next quarterly earnings call. Bob's Red Mill's product line, whole grains, flours, oats, baking mixes, does not require a natural flavors classification in its core range because it sells ingredients rather than flavor simulations. When Bob's Red Mill sells you rolled oats are what you get. The company holds NSF certification on several products, conducts third-party testing, and has maintained public transparency on ingredient sourcing consistently. Bob's Red Mill does not solve your full grocery list. It doesn't make yogurt, protein shakes, or baby food. In the specific product categories most heavily abused on the list you just watched, it doesn't compete. That's a real limitation, and it's worth naming directly. But the employee ownership model it demonstrates is a structural proof of concept. When the people making formulation decisions are the same people whose financial futures depend on the company's reputation over the long term, not over the next investor call, the calculation changes, not always dramatically, but sometimes in exactly the ways that matter. The next time you see natural flavors on a label, on your protein powder, on the juice carton, on the baby food pouch. You'll know exactly what you're looking at. Not a simple ingredient. Here's the thesis one final time. Natural flavors is not an ingredient. It's a trade secret wearing an ingredient's name tag. And every company on this list counted on that phrase sounding too boring to investigate. We're already working on the GRAS list, the FDA's generally recognized as safe database. And what we found there is going to make the natural flavors loophole look like a warm-up. Subscribe if you haven't. You'll want to be there for that one. You know now. That matters.